Good afternoon and welcome to Live on Location. I'm Pastor Darrell Mason, Senior Pastor of Spirit of Christ Ministry. And as you can see, today we are here at Ogletown Exchange having a basketball game. You know, the basketball players are there to get ready to get their game started, things like that. So it's actually really a good thing that's going on. Okay, well, why is Live on Location talking about basketball today? Well, I'm not talking about basketball today. You know, in the book of Matthew, chapter 10, verse 38, it talks about the cost, counting the cost of the thing. And how am I going to equate that? Well, basically, with basketball players, what they do is before they get ready for a game, they got to prepare for the game. They got to make sure that their game is on. They got to make sure that they got their bodies tight and everything like that, and that they're ready to play the game because they are actually going to realize, okay, hold on. I got to run these courts. I got to run back and forth. So I got to make sure I got enough rest. I got to make sure that I'm not feeling too sluggish or tired. But I got to do all these things. So they start exercising. They start playing. They start getting ready. And that's how they start to count the cost. So when they get ready to play the basketball game, when they're asked, they say, okay, well, let me look at this. First of all, do I have what it takes to complete the game? Do I have what it takes to possibly win the game? And people of God, what is Jesus saying to us in the book of Matthew? He's saying, count the cost. He said that when we get ready to come into this lifestyle with Christ, he says to count the cost. See if we have what it takes to be able, because it doesn't matter if we start off good. We've got to have a good pace. We've got to have a good finish. And how do we do that in a good way? We start off, of course, with Christ, and then we end with Christ. We go throughout this entire walk with Christ. We have to count the cost. Jesus said that, you know what, if a man doesn't count the cost, it's kind of foolish. He said because he doesn't know if he has what he needs to be able to finish that race and finish that fight. So people of God, we've got to begin to look at this thing. If we're already in this walk with Christ, then we've got to look at it and say, okay, you know what, I'm counting the cost. I'm counting the fact that, you know what, sometimes being a Christian is not going to be popular. I'm counting the cost. Understand that my life is going to have to change. For some of us, our lives are going to have to change drastically. Why? Because now we can't be with some people that we may have been doing some things with that we had no business doing things with. Your life has to change. We got to count the cost. When Christ comes into our life and we say, you know what, I want to be a part of a church. I want to live for God. I want to serve God with my whole heart. You know how people say, for God I'll live and for God I'll die. You got to count the cost before you can say that. Now, am I discouraging anybody from getting saved? Am I discouraging anybody from coming into this life with Christ and joining the ministry and just doing all that they can for God? Absolutely not. But what I'm saying here is that be wise about the decisions that we're making for God. Don't get into this thing for something wrong. Don't get into it and say, you know what, I'm going to be a Christian because this girl is a Christian and I want to be with her. I want to be a Christian because this guy's a Christian and I want to be with him. I want to be a Christian because this person said I should. I want to be a Christian because my parents are pastors. I want to be a Christian because of all these different reasons. You have to count the cost of that thing. You've got to begin to look at it and say, I want to be a Christian because I know my life needs to be changed. I know I want to be a Christian because Christ loved me, he died for me, he rose again, and now he is going to come back one day, and he's coming back to get a bride without a spot or blemish. And I got to count the cost in that thing. I have to begin to look at it and see, you know what, am I ready to give up the things that I need to give up in this life? Am I ready to give up all this misery and stuff like that so that I can begin to do what God is calling me to do and walk in this right relationship with God? So people of God, even as the basketball players, they're playing and they're getting kind of intense. We had a game that was just real intense. It was neck and neck. And they just lost by 1 point and the other team won. But here's the deal, people of God, is they were fighting. They were doing everything that they could to win that game. And that's how you got to do it. When you're walking this walk and living this life with Christ, you've got to do everything that you can. And sometimes it gets a little intense. Sometimes you got to do some things that you don't necessarily want to do. But to bring God glory, you've got to say yes so that you can see and have a good finish and not be discouraged in the midst of the fight, not be discouraged in the midst of the walk. He said, take up your cross, follow me. Let a man forsake himself. And he's got to count the cost of this thing. When we start a building project, when we start anything like that, and we get ready to do something, you want to make sure that your foundation is laid, right? You want to make sure that it's in a good location. What is the believer's foundation? That is Jesus Christ and him crucified, rose again.
the dead. He's a good foundation to start on. Old pastor told me one time that when you don't know what to do the red. You know the red letters in the Bible that Jesus spoke? When you don't know what to do what Jesus said. You can't go wrong there. So people of God, I just really want to encourage your heart. Again, Pastor Mason coming from Ogletown Exchange, the Spirit of Christ Ministries. We're representing the Outspoke Generation Basketball team headed by Coach Minister Corey DeShields. We love you, people of God. Have a blessed day. Tomorrow is Sunday morning. Get into a Bible-believing, Bible-teaching church where the Word of God is lifted up and expounded on, and the Spirit of God is felt in the place. Don't go to a place where they feel like they can't worship, they can't praise, they can't do nothing. Just sit there and look. No, go to a place where you feel the presence of God moving so that you can get what you need from the Lord. The people of God, we love you. Have a blessed day. Bye-bye.